Hey, boys and girls, guess what time it is? It's story time, story time, story time. Okay, Mrs. Moo Moo loves stories, so I said she could sit in and just listen. She's not going to sing for us today, but she likes story time, just like people love story time, you know? Cows love it too. So today's story is called When Marion Sang. So we're going to learn about who Marion is and why you should know about her. So the pictures are important, whether you're 5 or 12. All right. So I want you to look at them and picture why they're there. One, see if you can identify what they are, why it might be important to the story. Okay. What's this? What are we looking at here? You can talk. What is this? What kind of answers are you seeing? Can you really see the picture? What could this be? Look on both pages. Notice anything standing out? Huh. All right, some action. No one was surprised that Marion loved to sing. After all, she listened to her father singing in the morning as he dressed. Mother often hummed while she worked in the kitchen. Sometimes Marion and her little sisters, Ethel May and Elise, sang songs all afternoon. Let us break bread together on our knees. Let us break bread together on our knees. When I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun, O Lord, have mercy on me. However, her voice was distinct, strong and velvety, and able to climb more than 24 notes. Everyone wanted to hear Marion sing. So think about like in class when we sing our notes together. We've only worked on do, re, mi, fa, and so and reading them. And that's 5. And this Marion could sing 24 notes. What it must be like to have a range like that at such a young age. Alexander Robinson, the choir director at the Union Baptist Church in South Philadelphia, wanted to hear Marion sing, even though she was not quite 8 years old and sometimes sang too loud. He asked her to perform a duet with her friend Viola Johnson. As Viola sang the high part and Marion sang the low, their harmony blended like a silk braid. Dear to the heart of the shepherd, dear are the sheep of his fold. Dear is the love that he gives them, dearer than silver or gold. Church folk started whispering and followed without and out talking about Marion's remarkable gift. Neighboring churches heard the news and invited Marion to perform. One advertisement said, "Come and hear the baby contralto, 10 years old," and people came. A contralto is a low female voice. A soprano is a high female voice. So Miss Marion, even though she was 10, already had this lovely low voice. When Marion sang, it was often with her eyes closed, as if finding the music within. Audiences heard not only words, but feelings too, spirited worship, tender affection, and nothing short of joy. She was chosen for the celebrated People's Chorus, 100 voices from all the Black church choirs in Philadelphia. She was one of the youngest members and had to stand on a chair so those in the back could see the pride of South Philadelphia. Her father was proud too, but protective. He didn't want anyone taking advantage of his child. Father's love made Marion feel important. When he died after an injury at the Reading terminal where he sold ice, tragedy filled Marion's heart and sometimes her songs. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Mother was happy for Marion's success, but reminded her that no matter what she studied, to take a little extra time and do it well. Marion didn't need extra encouragement when it came to singing. She practiced her part of each song and often learned all the other parts too. For her, music was serious business. And more than anything, she hoped someday to go to music school. Church members promised tuition for our Marion if she was accepted. Since father's death, Marion worked at odd jobs and sang in concert programs in order to self support her family. It wasn't until 1915, when Marion was 18, that she finally went to a music school and patiently waited in line for an application. But the girl behind the counter helped everyone except Marion. Was she invisible? Finally, the girl said, "We don't take colored." Her voice sounded like a steel door clanging shut. So, math. If she was 18 years old in 1915, what year was she born? Take a minute. Can you figure it out? Especially my older babies. 1915, she was 18 years old. What math problem do we need to figure it out? Pause me. Figure it out. Tell me what your answer is. Marion knew about prejudice. She had seen the trolley drive past her family as they stood at the corner. She knew that her people were always the last to be helped in a store. But she could not understand how anyone who was surrounded by the spirit and beauty of music could be so narrow minded. She felt sick in her stomach and in her heart. Didn't they know that her skin was different, but her feelings were the same? Couldn't she be a professional singer if she was Negro? With unwavering faith, Mother told her that there would be another way to accomplish what would have been done at that school. Marion believed her mother. She took voice lessons in her own neighborhood, continued with the choirs, and sometimes performed at Negro churches and colleges. When Marion saw a Metropolitan Opera performance of the tragic opera Madame Butterfly, thoughts of a formal music education again came to her mind. How wonderful would it be to sing on a grand stage, act out a dramatic role, and wear beautiful costumes? The passionate music inspired her, and she was determined to study. But opera was simply the sun and the moon, a dream that seemed too far away to reach. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the sun and the moon right in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. As a young woman in her 20s, Marion was invited to many states to sing. Sometimes she traveled with her accompanist by train, where they were seated in the dirty and crowded Jim Crow car reserved for Negroes. When she arrived at her destination, she often sang the same program twice to separate audiences, one white and one black, or to segregated groups, whites in the best seats and blacks in the balcony. Many times she was welcomed enthusiastically by her audiences and then could not get a hotel room because she was a Negro. No matter what humiliation she endured, Marion sang her heart with dignity. Her voice left audiences weeping or in hushed awe as they strained to hold on to the memory of every opulent note. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. I want you to take a minute and imagine this. I want you to think of any time you've done a report for class or shared something with your class and imagine having to do it twice or multiple times for all the different people that look different in the room, how troubling that would be. Just a drama, just extra work to have to do something extra times because of rules of separation, and how much she must have really loved the music in order to do that. Marion still wanted to advance her singing with master teachers. With the help of her friends, she was granted an audition with the fierce yet famous Giuseppe Bogetti. When she arrived at his studio, Mr. Bogetti announced that he didn't have time or room for her new students or for new students. Too afraid even to look at him, Marion took a deep breath. Slowly, with great emotion, she sang. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land where all is peace? O deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Marian finally lifted her eyes. I will make room for you right away, Mr. Bogetti said firmly, and I will need only 2 years with you. Do you know how many years college normally is? You know, can be 4, sometimes more. But Marian's so talented, Mr. Bogetti says he just needs 2. After that, you'll be able to go anywhere and sing for anybody. Again, Marian's devoted church community raised the money for her lessons. Marian worked hard with Mr. Bogetti, and sometimes for practice, she sang scenes from Italian operas with him. Her recitals now included German songs too, but other languages troubled her. She didn't want to simply sing beautiful words like dunkel, wie dunkel in Wald und Feld. She wanted to know what the words meant. Dark, how dark in the woods and the fields. Other Negro singers had gone overseas to develop their voices and learn foreign languages. Why not her? After all, Europe was different. There, she would be able to sing to mixed audiences and travel without the restrictions put on her people in America. Marian needed to grow, and Mother agreed. A bundle of trepidation and excitement. What do you think trepidation is? Context clues. She was a bundle of trepidation and excitement about to move to a different continent. Marian boarded the Ile de France in October 1927. She had never been so far from her family. She knew her sisters would take good care of her mother, but she still already felt twinges of homesickness. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone, a long ways from home, a long ways from home. Have you ever felt that way? What made you feel that way? Hmm. Marion studied and was eventually invited to perform in concert halls in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. The enthusiasm for her singing was so overwhelming that one newspaper in Sweden called it Marion fever. Audiences applauded in London, cheered in Paris, and pounded on the stage for encores in Russia. In Austria, the world famous conductor Arturo Toscanini announced that what he had heard one was privileged to hear only once in 100 years. Marion felt as if she finally had achieved some success. She even asked Mother if there was anything she wanted that would make her happy because now Marion could afford to buy it for her. Mother said that all she wanted was for God to hold Marion in the highest of his hands. It seemed like she was already there. Mr. Bogetti had been right. She could go anywhere and sing for anyone until she came home to the United States. In 1939, Howard University in Washington, D.C., booked a concert with Marian Anderson and began looking for an auditorium big enough to hold the audience she attracted. They decided that the 4,000 seat Constitution Hall would be perfect, but the manager of the hall said it wasn't available and no other dates were offered because of their white performers only policy. Marion's agent, Sol Hurok, wrote to the hall manager, pointing out that Marion was one of the greatest living singers of our time, but it did no good. Enraged fans wrote letters to the newspaper. In protest, Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the United States, who's the First Lady? What's that mean? What's the First Lady do? Who's she related to? The First Lady of the United States resigned from the organization that sponsored Constitution Hall. Howard University then tried to reserve a large high school auditorium from an all white school. Again, they were denied. Now, teachers were angry and marched in support of Marion in front of the Board of Education. Washington, D.C. was a boiling pot about to spill over. Wasn't there some place in her own country's capital where Marian Anderson's voice could be heard? Committees formed and held meetings. Finally, with President Roosevelt's approval, the Department of the Interior of the United States government invited Marian to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on Easter Sunday. Her country was offering her a momentous invitation, but she had concerns. Would people protest? Was it dangerous? Would anyone come? Examining her heart, Marian realized that although she was a singer first and foremost, she also had become a symbol to her people, and she wanted to make it easier for those who would follow her. She said yes. Standing in the shadow of the statue of Lincoln, waiting to be called out, she read the engraved words: "This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom." Marian looked out on a river of 75,000 people. Her heart beat wildly. Would she be able to utter one note? She took a deep breath and felt the power of her audience's goodwill surge toward her. Marian's sisters were there, and mother too. Marian stood straight and tall. Then she closed her eyes and sang, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring." A roaring cheer followed every song. At the end of the program, the people pleaded for more. When she began her thought provoking encore, "Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow." Silence settled on the multitudes. What do you notice about this picture? Look at all the people. What do you notice about them? For almost 16 years after the Lincoln Memorial performance, Marian sang for queens and kings, presidents and prime ministers, famous composers and conductors. She received medals, awards, and honorary degrees for her magnificent voice. But there was still one place Marian had not sung. When she was finally invited, a dream came true. Marian wondered how people would react. No Negro singer had ever done such a thing. She would be the first, but she didn't need to worry. After she signed the contract, someone said, "Welcome home." On opening night, excitement charged the air. As Marian waited in the wings, the orchestra began. Her stomach fluttered. She walked onto the grand stage, trembling. She straightened her costume and waited for the pounding music she knew to be her cue. Tonight was her debut with the Metropolitan Opera. At long last, she had reached the sun and the moon. The curtains parted, and Marian sang. All right. We just read about Marian Anderson, the first Black woman, the first Black person to perform at the Metropolitan Opera. And she performed at the Lincoln Memorial. So we should know where these things are, right? And we should know where she went in Europe. So let's take a look at our maps. You know, Mrs. WK loves some maps. Mrs. Mumu, where'd you go? I guess she was floored by the story. It's a pretty good one. All right, let's look at some maps, Mrs. Mumu. So I'm going to share my screen. Maps. All right, so let's start at home. Actually, we'll start in Marian's home. We're in the United States. That's her home too, right? So anyone remember where she was from? I'm going to zoom into the state. Miss Marian was from Philadelphia. Right, so here's Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Then she left to go several places, right? So we're going to go which direction over which ocean if we're going to Europe? Think about it. Where are we going? We're going east over the Atlantic. Going east. Atlantic. Oh yeah, east. Come on, we're still in the water. Dang. Hurry up. East. East. Okay. So she was in Scandinavia, right? So we heard Sweden, Norway, Finland. I'm going to zoom out so you can see more. She was in Russia, right? So she went all of these places. Do you remember anywhere else she went? Where did she go back to where they wouldn't allow her to sing? Going back home. What's the capital of the United States, boys and girls? So let's look at Washington, D.C. And she sang in front of the Lincoln Memorial in front of 75,000 people. Let's take a look at some pictures. Imagine that all full. Lincoln watched. Probably thought it was pretty good. There's Lincoln Memorial. Let's see where she wasn't allowed to perform at Constitution Hall. Ooh, you saw that move? It wasn't terribly far. Temporarily closed. COVID. So there's Constitution Hall. There's what it looks like on the outside. Doesn't look like it would have been big enough for her anyway, huh? And then, yeah, closed. Okay, so I want you to think about what that must have been like to have a passion about something and to want to share something and to have people constantly in your way just because of what you look like and how sad that must have been for her and her desire to still pursue it. And I want to know if you've ever felt anything similar. I'm going to make a separate video for you to check out Marion's voice, right? I didn't sing any of the songs because I want you to just have her voice in your head. So I'm going to link to a few videos of her singing at that time, and then reflect and see what you think of her voice, the voice that helped to break many barriers for Black people in classical music. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed learning about, what's her name? Who is she? Marian Anderson. All right. And check out some films about her. All right, boys and girls. Have a good day.